Hello everyone, welcome to Textbook Super Coaching for Regulatory Bodies. कैसे आप सब लोग? And welcome to the session. Today we are going to discuss important current affairs, which we are discussing every day. We are discussing some articles from the newspaper, what exactly is going on around the world, around our economy, especially focusing on economics, finance, and the banking. That is the major focus of our session. But before that, before going to discuss about the news article, before going to talk about the news, like important news, we are first going to focus on some MCQs. कुछ MCQs है जो करंट ओरिएंटेड है, हमारी एग्जाम के लिए बहुत जरूरी है, तो उनके ऊपर सबसे पहले हम लोग बात करेंगे. वंस अगेन वेरी गुड मॉर्निंग टू यू ऑल. एक बार जल्दी से ज्वाइन कर लीजिएगा, ज्वाइन दिस सेशन एंड विल स्टार्ट विद द लेक्चर. अगेन those who are yet to subscribe the channel, please एक बार चैनल भी सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिएगा. And don't forget to press the bell icon so that you will get the notification before the sessions. As well as if you like the session, please click on this particular image. Okay, fine. So we'll start. And the first, we'll discuss few MCQs. We'll discuss a few questions for the exam point of view. So first MCQ is on your screen. Based on the wholesale price index, wholesale inflation increased from 1.31% to in August to how much percent in September? And that's a question for you. So the question is regarding WPI, wholesale price index. WPI is given by the Commerce Ministry. Commerce and Industry Ministry is responsible to provide the data of WPI. This data comes on monthly basis. It consists of the values of commodities in India, especially the manufacturing, good, fuel and power, and the primary articles. So based on these three things, we have this data. So yes, what is the percentage right now when it comes to WPI? So as per the recent data, 1.8% in the month of September. So WPI is increasing. WPI or its CPI everywhere, the inflation is going up when it comes to India, especially due to the food inflation, especially due to the food scenario. And that's the answer of this question. So food inflation increased dramatically in the last month, reaching 11.53% from the 3.11% in August. So you can see under WPI, food inflation crossed double digits. It's like 11.53%. It's very huge. It's very high. And of course, that is going to create a huge impact. And that is the point which is mentioned here in this question. We'll go to the next question, the question number 2. PMGTI Shakti National Master Plan's district version has been launched for how many aspirational districts? That is a question for you. Aspirational districts. So 24, 25, 26, 27 or the 28. So recently our Commerce Minister, he talked about some inclusion of a few aspirational districts into this national plan. Okay. I will restart the board. Till that time, please give me the answer. The another question, the sub question I want to ask you, PMGTI Shakti was created in which year exactly? How many pillars are there under PMGTI Shakti and how many ministries or the departments of Government of India is working under the PMGTI Shakti? So put these answers in the comment section. Till that time, I will start the board and we are going to discuss properly. Yes, we have 112 aspirational districts as per the Niti Aayog, but under this PMGTI Shakti's recent district plan announced by the Commerce Ministry, 27 districts considered by the Government of India. So now my question is, how many pillars are there and when we started this PMGTI Shakti? That is a question from my side. Yesterday we talked about this. Yesterday we discussed about these pillars also. There are 6 pillars. Okay, 6 pillars comes under this PMGTI Shakti. 42 ministries or the departments are involved under PMGTI Shakti. That is another important point for the exam. I'll just start it. Yes, so the answer of this question, which we have already discussed, answer is 27 aspirational districts under the PMGTI Shakti National Master Plans, district plan basically announced by the Commerce Ministry. Okay, so 6 pillars are there and 42 ministries are involved when it comes to this the implementation of PMGTI Shakti. Okay, I'll go to the next question. India's trade deficit reached 5-month low of how much in September 2024. We discussed this yesterday through PIB. We talked about this particular data that India's trade deficit is reduced. The reason is that India's export increased little bit. Either it's merchandise export as well as it's the service sector export. Both the exports are showing some positive signs. At the same time, import is also increased, but marginally increased. That's why we are able to reduce our trade deficit. We are able to reduce a trade deficit with the minor numbers or the minute numbers, but still they are very important. So that's the question in front of you. So India's trade deficit reached a 5-month low to how much? So answer of this question, if we talk about this, so we are able to reduce to 20.78 billion. In the month of August, it was 29.65 billion. Now it is reduced to $20.78 billion. So that's the case, and that's why this is very, very important. When it comes to merchandise export, it's marginally increased, which we have already discussed. Service export also increased to 30.61 billion. So if your export is increased, automatically the deficit will get reduced. But we need to work very hard, because these are the just a few initial numbers, or these are just a minute numbers. If we really want to reduce the current account deficit, if you really want to become the current account surplus country, we need to work very hard. But right now, one news I'm going to discuss in few minutes, and that news is really very important for the India's CAD, or the current account surplus future, and we'll talk about that just within few minutes. We'll go to the next question. CPI based retail inflation increased to a 9-month high of how much in September against the 3.7% in the August. In the July month, in the August month, we were very happy because India's inflation was down less than 4%. And suddenly in the month of September, we got a huge shock, and that shock is due to food inflation, especially vegetable inflation. We are going to talk about the vegetable inflation in today's session also, because Government of India gave some data, Government of India initiated some policy so that the vegetable inflation should not get again high or cross 10%. The answer of this question is, of course, 5.5% is the answer of this question in the month of September. Consumer price index is given by NSO, National Statistical Office, on the monthly basis. NSO comes under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Rao Indrajit Singh sir is a minister of this ministry. WPS, CPI having two major differences. The first difference is that WPS talks about the wholesale, whereas the CPI talks about the retail. WPI is only about commodities, whereas CPI is about the commodity as well as services. Another thing is that when it comes to the base year of CPI, we talked about the calendar year. When it comes to base year of the WPI, we talked about the financial year. Can you tell me the base years for WPI as well as for the CPI? And in case of CPI, any CPI, either it's industrial worker, or either it's combined, or the rural or the urban, is always the calendar year. When it comes to WPI, it's all about the financial year. So please tell me the base years we calculate for CPI combined as well as for the WPI, so that the things will be better. I'll move forward. Yes, for WPI is 11, 12. For CPI is 12. Yes, absolutely right. Very good. Which of the following banks take purchase in Future Generali India Insurance and Future Generali India Life Insurance has been approved by Competition Commission of India? So which bank is going to purchase some stakes, some shares in Future Generali, General as well as Life Insurance Company? Like I have mentioned earlier, this can be called as a bank assurance. इसको bank assurance का agreement भी हम लोग कहेंगे. Of course, the permission should be taken from the regulatory bodies, but before the merger or before purchasing some shares, the Competition Commission of India looks after the moral scenario, the ethical scenario for this particular agreement. So, Central Bank of India, we talked about the Central Bank of India. I guess the explanation is something different. Very sorry for the explanation. Central Bank of India is the answer of this question, which we have discussed already. Okay. Food inflation as a squiflation? No, absolutely not. Look, remember, one thing I mentioned you earlier, that certain commodities playing a vital role on the overall inflation. Like for example, oil, gas, okay, or the food. These are the commodities, they are going to play the huge role, because if there is a little bit increase in these commodities, is going to impact all other commodities, going to impact completely on the economy. That's why when it comes to these food or these in case of petroleum products or the crude oil or the gas, If there is little bit inflation, we can't call them squiflation because they are going to impact adversely on the complete inflation scenario. But on the other hand, for example, the textile is getting costlier, or only shoes are getting costlier, or only hair oil is getting costlier, then we can call it as a squiflation because they are not going to have a huge impact. That's why when it comes to India, not only India, I will say all other countries in the world, there is always a separate food category in every inflation index. Like under CPI, we have a separate food category. We calculate food under normal CPI, but also we have the separate category. Same for the WPI. We calculate the WPI properly, and again there is a separate category for the food inflation under WPI, because the role of food inflation is always a huge, always a very, very impactful, and that's the case. So we can't call them squiflation. Manoj Kumar Dubey assumed the charge as CMD CEO of which of the following? So Manoj Kumar Dubey, so it's a very simple question which we have discussed earlier. One of the mini Ratna company of Government of India comes under the Railway Ministry, and the name of the company is IRFC. So Indian Railway Finance Corporation is a mini Ratna company under the aegis of Ministry of Railway. Ashwini Vaishnaw sir is a minister. So he is a new managing director and of this institution, that is Manoj Kumar Dubey sir, Indian Railway Finance Corporation. We'll go to the next question. Which of the following are the winners of Nobel Economics Prize? It's a very simple question. All these, those who got the Economics Nobel, they are from the USA. Obviously, they are having some different origin, but working in USA, in US's universities, and they got the Nobel for the wealth inequality, the role of institutions when it comes to the inequality and the wealth creation. For that study, for that purpose, they got the Nobel for the economics. So of course, all the three, that is Daron Acemoglu, then Simon Johnson and James Robinson. These two are working in MIT. This James Robinson is working with the Chicago University, and they worked on one of the most important part, that is institutions are form and affect prosperity. So इंस्टीट्यूशंस का इम्पैक्ट कैसे होता है हर कंट्री में, वेल्थ क्रिएशन, वेल्थ इनइक्वालिटी, प्रॉस्पेरिटी कैसे बनती है. If there is inequality, how institutions are responsible for that. If there is equality, how institutions are playing the vital role in that case, and that is the most important scenario. It looks easy, but it is actually very important because we need to prove it mathematically, statistically, and the job they did is very amazing. It's very important. Yes, next question. Cabinet recently approved the MSP for Rabi crops for the 25-26. The MSP for wheat has been increased by how much rupees per quintal? These kind of questions are mostly will be for the NABARD type of exam, like I have mentioned earlier. Yes, guys. Yes, Gini coefficient will play the vital role, no doubt about that. But actually their job is not only to study the inequality. Their job is that how institutions, for example the government or any kind of authority, any kind of institute or any kind of welfare society, how they are playing the role to reduce the inequality, to create the prosperity. That is their study. So of course there is a Gini coefficient, there is a study of Gini coefficient, but that is not the major focus area. The major focus area, how it can be inequality can be reduced. So answer is, look, MSP for wheat is increased by 150 per quintal. Then mustard MSP is raised by the 300 rupees per quintal. When it comes to gram, sunflower and the barley increased by the 210 per quintal. Near about 6 crops comes under Rabi MSP scenario. Under Rabi, we have the 6 crops, and total MSP obviously for 22 crops, out of which Rabi consists of the 6 crops, so majority in under the Kharif crop category. But anyways, CSCP is responsible to recommend the MSP, and Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs is responsible to decide what can be the MSP. Okay, chalo. Now we'll start with the news. Now we'll start with the news discussion. The first and the most favorite news for students, not for the examiner but for the students. Now again, RBI decided to ban few NBFCs from lending or extending the loans. So which NBFCs? So one of the NBFCs called as the Ashirwad Microfinance Limited from Chennai, then Arohan Financial Service Limited from the Kolkata, DMI Finance Private Limited from the New Delhi, and Navi Finserv Limited from the Bengaluru. Navi was very much in news because they created many agreements recently, even the co-lending agreement, but RBI decided to put ban on their lending activities. Obviously, the reason is that they didn't follow the compliance given by the RBI. They are not classifying the loans properly, like NPA classifications and all. They are not handling those things properly, and there are some transactions which are under the scrutiny by the Reserve Bank of India, and that's why under section 45L1B RBI Act of 1934, RBI decided to put some ban on their lending activities. Now, Ashirwad Microfinance and Arohan Microfinance, these are the microfinancial institutions. NBFCs having different types of NBFCs. So these two are the microfinancial institution, whereas these are the investment credit companies, DMI as well as Navi Finance Limited. So on that, RBI decided to put certain restriction. Look, for the exam point of view, if some restrictions are there, the major and the most important thing is that under which section and which act this ban is being imposed by the Reserve Bank of India. For a future point of view, I want to tell you one thing. 99% times, if NBFCs are receiving some penalties or the ban from RBI, will be always under RBI Act of 1934. If in case of banks, especially scheduled commercial banks, if RBI is putting those banks under scrutiny or implementing some penalties or the punishments or some restrictions, will be under Banking Regulation Act. So for the banks, Banking Regulation Act will be mostly used for such kind of penalties and the punishments or the restrictions. And for NBFC, the RBI Act of 1934. Again, mostly. Obviously, there are the other ways, there are the other reasons, because if the things are under payment and settlement scenario, then the Payment and Settlement Act will be used. There are some sections of RBI can be used for the bank restriction. Some sections of the regulatory activity can be used for the NBFCs, but usually, mostly, we are following these laws, putting restrictions on these activities. So again, for the NBFCs, mostly RBI Act of 1934, and for banks, Banking Regulation Act of 1949. That will be enough for the exam point of view. Again, for RBI Grade B exam, I will suggest clearly, don't try to mug up the penalty amount. Thankfully, there is no penalty amount in this news. So if there is any penalty amount, don't try to mug up that. That is not important. Even sometimes the names of the institution are also not that important. Mostly the question will be focusing on this part. That should be our major focus. That should be our major criteria. Okay. So yes, financial institutions. Yes, exactly. Chalo, we'll move to the next question. India's trade with Africa may take a hit if Iran-Israel conflict widens. Okay. Now, I was talking about this earlier when we were discussing some questions. Now, India's trade with Africa is going to hit because Iran and Israel issue. Iran and Israel issue, Indians are taking it very chill pill. We are not even thinking about it, how it is going to impact very badly to our economy. It is absolutely going to create a chaotic situation for export in coming years or in coming days. Not I will say years, in coming days. Iran is one of the very important country for us. Okay, no doubt about that. Israel, we are having very good relation with the Israel. Iran is more important. The reason is that Chabwar port is there, and that port we have developed for the import-export purposes. Through Iran, we can reach to the Central Asia. So if the country is on war and country is asking to take the sides, and that time it will create a huge problem for our future trade, for our future relations. Okay, that is the first thing. The next thing, again very important, Israel, the location of Israel. Okay, now why the Israel and Iran war is going to impact Indian trade? The reason is that, look, mostly the trade is from the Suez Canal. This is the part where we are handling the trade. This is the Suez Canal. The Israel is here, okay, Iran war is here. So this area is mostly the war prone area. So if this war is there, so of course, whatever the export, whatever the import is there, especially to this part of the country, this part of the Africa, for example, Egypt, Libya, Algeria. Recently, Indian president was in Algeria, then Mali, then Mauritania, where the Indian president recently visited. So the trade with these countries will get hampered, and India is actually doing a very good trade with this part of the world. Another thing, European country, if you want to reach the European country, this is the a kind of a ideal trade channel through Suez Canal. So if the war is going on in this part of the world, obviously it will be very dangerous for us. So these wars are always dangerous for the country like India, because we want to work very hard on export. We are manufacturing many things. We are having so many policies, production link incentive scheme, make in India, invest in India. But all these policy will get failed if we are not able to supply things properly. Either we need to find out the other channels, or we need to work with these countries that there should not be war, because working on the other channels will take time. Obviously it is going to take time, and if you want to work on the other channels, these channels will always include these countries. These channels will include these countries. Like if you want to go to Africa, and one of the comment I was reading yesterday, someone said if you want to go to Africa, we can go directly here. No, we can't do that. Okay, to reach these countries, this will be a very long cut, very long cut. Okay, and from reaching to these countries from the land boundary, it's not that easy, because the relation between these countries are also not good. Okay, going through the land boundary is not that easy to reach some countries. It's always better go through the sea, and that's why it is really going to impact India's export. If it is going to impact India's export, of course the trade will be very bad for us. So current account deficit will increase in coming years. So whatever the ministers are saying that everything is good, nothing is going to happen and all, of course it is going to happen. It is going to create a huge impact, and that's the point mentioned here. Okay, now Gulf countries, 17.7 billion is our export. West Asian nations, 2.89 billion. Africa, 13.91 billion, and total export is 143.95 billion. So these exports are going to be impacted. The Gulf Cooperation Council's export, West Asia nations, and the Africa. So these three exports are going to hamper. 143.95 billion is a big amount, is literally a big amount. So if this export is going to get down, अगर ये नंबर ना 43 बिलियन भी यहां से कम हो गया, तो भी बहुत बड़ा इंपैक्ट होगा कंट्री लाइक इंडिया के लिए. हमारे लिए एक एक बिलियन का एक्सपोर्ट बहुत मैटर करता है, जिस तरीके से इकोनॉमी को आगे पुश करना है. दैट्स व्हाई while writing the answers, while writing your phase 2 questions, you can easily use such kind of example, such kind of case study. Okay, so ये बहुत जरूरी है, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है आपकी एग्जाम के लिए. ठीक है, तो इसको मिस नहीं करना है. हम ना कई बार क्या सोचते हैं, कई बार हमारी सोच ये होती है कि why such kind of things are important for us, this is the political stuff, this is the UPSC stuff. No, you use these things in your answers, your answer will be one of the perfect answer in the exam, perfect answer. So don't miss these things. Even India Canada relationship, Canada is one of the good investor in India. If there is a problem in the India Canada relations, then the investments are going to impact. Investments are going to impact. I will not say trade, but investment is going to impact, and we need investment. We need investment. We need money from different countries. So yes, it is going to impact our economy. But I will not say, I will not talk about Canada, India right now, because the things will get settled soon. The Canada especially playing their political card. There will be elections in their country, and Justin Trudeau, he wants to create a political stand in his country. So we'll not talk about that, but yes, investment can get impacted due to such kind of concept. Okay, so that's the case, that's the scenario. That's it from this news. We'll go to this news. This is a very simple news. Nothing to worry about that. Now, remember one thing. When it comes to defense, when it comes to Indian defense, we have Atmanirbhar defense, which is very significantly mentioned every time by our Raksha Mantri, by our defense minister, Rajnath Singh sir. Every time, whenever he come on the stage, he always talked about Atmanirbhar defense, Atmanirbhar defense. But at the same time, we need to purchase few things from the other countries. Like recently, we purchased MQ-9B drones from USA. General Atomics is the name of the company. Now again, another agreement, and this agreement is with Geo Aerospace. GE Aerospace is again a US based company, and this company is going to supply engines to the Indian Navy. Engines to Indian Navy. For what purpose? So there are some I will say some vessels called as a next generation missile vessels. I will show you the vessel, next generation missile vessel. These are the next generation missile vessel. These vessels will be very fast. These vessels will be very precise, and these vessels will be one of the dangerous vessels in future. These vessels are not the aircraft carrier. They are the small vessels. Aircraft carriers are very big because planes can land on them. These are very small vessels, but very fast, very dangerous, and for the defense purpose, wonderful. So we want to create these vessels in India. We are going to manufacture these vessels in India, but the engine support will be given by one US based company, and the name of the company is General Electronics. GE, General Electronics is the name of the company, and they are going to help us to create the engines. So two things are happening. First, we are not importing the whole ship. We are just importing the engines or the technique behind the engine. These ships will be manufactured in India only. So Atmanirbhar Defense or the Atmanirbhar India or the Atmanirbhar Bharat, that will be the concept which will be proved properly. And then the agreement with the USA. So India-US relationship will be the first part. The second part regarding Atmanirbhar Defense, and then the current news that with which company we signed the agreement, or which company is going to help us, or what is the name of the vessel called as a next generation missile vessel. How many vessels we are going to create, how many ships we are going to create. So 6 vessels we are going to create, and for that engines will be provided by the General Electronics, and that's the concept, that's the scenario over here. Okay. Frigate type, yes, Pile-G, we can call it as a frigate type ship. Absolutely, frigate type ship we can call it as, but this will be completely categorized into the new category because they're the next generation vessels. So what government of India or what Navy decided, they decided to put in a different classification altogether, the different criteria. So we can say the size will be like a frigate only, not like a destroyer. Destroyer will be the big ships, उससे छोटी वाली फ्रिगेट होती है उसी साइज का रहेगा, पर इसको अलग तरीके से उन्होंने मेंशन किया हुआ है, ये पॉइंट याद रखिएगा. Now some students who are preparing for the RBI, they usually think these defense news are not important for us. I will say some defense news are absolutely not important for us, only important for the phase 1. But when it comes to phase 2, you can use such kind of examples into Atmanirbhar Bharat, into Indian manufacturing, how Indian manufacturing is growing, how defense manufacturing will boost, because India is one of the biggest importer of defense equipment in the world. हम सबसे ज्यादा defense equipment import करते हैं, पूरे वर्ल्ड में टॉप में हम लोग आते हैं. If we are manufacturing things in India, obviously import will go down. Again, CAD, current account deficit, will be helpful for us. So you should use these things. You definitely should use this thing and use this word Atmanirbhar Defense repetitively. If you get the chance, you are going to get a very good marks over there. Now the next, direct tax to GDP ratio hits 24-year high in financial year 24. Two things are very positive, which we discussed earlier, that direct tax collection increased. It is increased, and it is not only increased in a gross terms, it also increased in a net terms. Okay, gross or net, because after income tax returns, whatever the amount left, it is also very good, as well as the gross collection is also very good. In both the terms, we are doing a very good job. Another positive thing is that GDP to tax collection is also increasing, which shows your revenue is increasing. Your revenue with GDP is increasing, means the deficit will go down in future. It's a positive sign. अगर आपके देश का रेवेन्यू बढ़ रहा है विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू जीडीपी, तो जो हमारा फिस्कल डेफिसिट है ना, फिस्कल डेफिसिट का टारगेट है 3% का. FRBM एक्ट याद होगा आपको, फिस्कल रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बजट मैनेजमेंट एक्ट. FRBM एक्ट said that fiscal deficit should be less than 3% with respect to GDP. If the tax collection with GDP is increasing, of course, the fiscal deficit in future will get reduced, and we will be able to achieve the target given by the FRBM Act. So that was the most important thing. So now the number is 6.64%. So direct tax to GDP ratio is 6.64%, which was very, very less when it comes to, if you'll see, financial year 01, it was 3.25%, very less. Then during this COVID-19 time frame, it was 4.5%. Now it is increased to 6.64%. It's a positive news. Next thing is tax buoyancy, is the ratio of change in tax revenue in relation to the change in gross domestic product or an economy. So change in tax revenue with change in GDP. So tax revenue और GDP में जो changes है वो भी आपके सही तरीके से जा रहे हैं. It is 2.12%. So tax buoyancy is 2.12%, and GDP direct tax to GDP ratio is 6.64%. Okay, that is change in. Change in means if the GDP is going up, the tax collection is also going up. So if there is changes happening in the GDP, the same changes we can see, or the positive changes we can see with the tax revenue, it's a good sign. It's literally a good sign, because if the GDP is going up, the people are earning money and they're paying taxes on that also. So tax collection is also good. So this is a very positive news. Nirmala ji must be very happy with this data, The CBDT must be very happy with this data, and Modi ji's office must be very happy because it is going to reduce the fiscal deficit for the government of India in coming years. Chalo. Now, India to be the third largest economy by 2030. I guess today's newspaper is very, very like cheerful for Nirmala Sitharamanji. She must be reading the newspaper and she must be very happy because each and every news related to her ministry showing a very positive scenario. S&P, Standard and Poor's, is one of the analytical firm from the world. It's from the USA. They are saying Indian economy will be the third largest economy by 2030. Right now, we are the fifth largest economy as per the economic survey presented this year. So we are the fifth largest. So by 2030, we will be the third largest economy in the world, S&P. Now we have the target. The target of government of India is that Indian economy should be 30 trillion rupees economy, 30 trillion dollar economy. Very sorry, not rupee. By 2047. That is a target set by the government of India earlier. Okay, so India's aim is the 30 trillion dollar economy. That should be our valuation by the 2047. And according to S&P, we are on right path. We'll be able to achieve it soon, but the condition applied that the GDP should be more than 7% for the rest of the time frame. If India's GDP will remain more than 7% for the rest of the time frame, definitely we will be able to achieve what are the targets set by government of India till 2047. Till 2047, we should be the developed country, and that is another point which is mentioned here. Okay, so that's it. बाकी तो कुछ नहीं है, इतना enough रहेगा एग्जाम के लिए, ध्यान रखिएगा. चलो आगे बढ़ते हैं. Now, this was the news I was talking about, food inflation. That was the news I was focusing about. In a first, the Kanda Express to roll into Delhi on October 20. Kanda Express, onion की बात हो रही है. A festival season is coming, and in this season especially, there will be increase in prices of onion. There will be increase in prices of onion, and which will impact the inflation. Two commodities will get costlier in future. One is onion, another is tomato. It's going to get costlier. It is already costlier right now. Okay, this is costlier. The reason is that one of the main reason is that weather, because the high rainfall in the September created a huge problem, and due to that, the production of tomato went down. When it comes to onion production as well as the demand is very huge when it comes to the onion, and especially during the festival season. So government of India, to reduce this inflationary measure, they decided to run the Kanda Express, a special train, and that train will be from Nashik to Delhi. Nashik in Maharashtra is very, very famous for onion production, very famous. There will be a special train, literally a special train consisting of 42 railway wagons. So 42 dibbe rahenge, and 1600 ton of onion or the kanda will be moved from Nashik to Delhi for the north part or the north region of the country, so that there should not be inflation. These are some measures we usually take to handle the inflationary scenario. That is government of India's job. The supply chain is the government of India's job. To maintain the supply is government of India's role, and to maintain the money flow is RBI's role. RBI is playing its role properly. Now it's time for government of India to play on such kind of scenarios. So remember that. Means if these things are happening, if there is a food inflation, for sure in the month of December, monetary policy will be remain unchanged if there is a food inflation, because food inflation, especially vegetable inflation, already crossed double digits. It's already more than 10%. So in that scenario, we need to take some efforts. Otherwise, situation will be very gloomy for our country. Same for the tomato. So tomato stokes fresh fears of food inflation spike this month. And it is going to happen. It is already happening, by the way. In many areas of our country, tomato prices are going up. So yes, the problematic situation is there for the country. The last news, deposit growth moderates to 11.8% in October, RBI. Reserve Bank of India talked about the deposit growth. Credit to deposit growth. Already from the beginning of this year, RBI governor is very much worried about the deposit growth. Last year, in the month of October, the deposit growth was 13.6%. Now the deposit growth came down to 11.8%. If there is less deposit with the banks, then the situation of the banks or the profitability of the banks will get hamper. Simple logic. If banks are getting more deposits, they will use that money to lend. If banks are getting less deposit, then to lend the money, they need to borrow the money from the market. So जब banks market से पैसा borrow करेगी, उसका interest ज्यादा होगा. Of course, saving account, FD, RD, इसका जो भी पैसा आएगा, उसका interest rate like 6%, 7, at the max 7% पकड़ लीजिए आप. At the max 7%. बट वही बैंक जब मार्केट से पैसा बोरो करेगी, दे आर बोरोइंग विथ 9%, 8%, 9.5%. सो बोरोइंग विल बी वेरी कॉस्टली. जब बोरोइंग कॉस्टली होगी तो लोन के ऊपर इंपैक्ट होने वाला है, इसलिए डिपॉजिट बढ़ना जरूरी है. बट द नंबर्स आर नॉट दैट गुड, which was already mentioned by RBI governor previously, that we need to increase the deposit and the credit ratio हमें पॉजिटिव करना पड़ेगा. So October to October year on year data is there. So last October the numbers were very good. This October numbers are not that good as per the Reserve Bank of India and their report. Okay, so that's it guys from my side. Look, right now Anisha ji, this El Nino and the climate, okay, of course climate change is going to impact. El Nino is not having that impact. Climate change, overall climate change is having the impact on us. Okay, we need to remember one thing which we are not ready to accept right now. Government somehow accepted that, but the farmers are not ready to accept. The common people are not ready to accept. Climate change is real. The seasons are changing. If you'll see, if you'll observe, the seasons are changing with by 1 month, almost 1 month. Means जब तक बारिश रुक जाती थी, वो बारिश और चल रही है. जब तक समर रुक जाता था, समर और 1 महीना एक्सटेंड हो रहा है. So things are changing. We need to adapt that. If we are not going to adapt that, then there will be inflation. There will be always inflation. So that's why climate resilient or the climate smart. Climate smart means what? If climate is changing, we need to change smartly. If climate is changing, we need to create such kind of things that we should be resilient with that. We should not be worried with that. But whatever happening like 20 years back, 50 years back, we are still following the same scenario. It's not going to happen. Things are changing, so we need to change. That's why farmers or the people need to change their attitude. Otherwise, the inflation will be there. हम सप्लाई डिमांड को मैनेज नहीं कर पाएंगे. तो ये समझना बहुत जरूरी है, इसको अंडरस्टैंड करना बहुत जरूरी है. ठीक है, तो ये ध्यान रखिएगा. That's it guys from my side for the day. We'll see you in the next session. तब तक के लिए bye bye, take care.